Hello, everyone. Quick little PSA. I will be in Chattanooga, Tennessee, December 15th and 16th for the Indoor Climbing Expo. Use the code Mario20 at indoorclimbingexpo.com to get your tickets. Come up and say hello and give a brother a high five. Some of the proceeds go back to the Global Climbing Initiative to get us back to Malawi, Africa to do more mentorship. And that is what this episode is all about. Hope you enjoy.
Check it out.
Friends and enemies, lovers and haters, welcome to Sends and Suffers podcast. I am your host, Mario Stanley. If you haven't already, please follow, like, and subscribe to Sends and Suffers podcast. Every bit counts, and we would love to hear from you. So take a moment to leave a comment. These go a long way and help others know what they're getting into and how good this show is. If this is one of your favorite podcasts, consider becoming a Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you are investing in Sends and Suffers podcast, and it's like buying your boy a taco, hanging out, and getting to know the good that is coming your way. Monthly recaps, early show releases, and all the other cool things that we do. Thank you so much for listening to Sends and Suffers podcasts. Organic Climbing is the official sponsor of Sends and Suffers podcast, and if you didn't know, now you know. I have been using this company's products since before my podcast, since I basically started rock climbing. They're cool, they're rad, they're customizable. You can get bouldering pads, chalk buckets, backpacks. They've got shoes. They've got almost anything you can conceive to make you look fly, to make you functional at the crag. Check out Organic Climbing. Put in Sends and Suffers at your purchase. It helps this podcast out. And really support someone who has been supporting the conception of climbing communities since the beginning. Josh and everyone at Organic is all about making sure communities grow. And that is a huge thing coming from a small company that moves massive mountains. So check out Organic Climbing. Tell them I sent you. Let's get into this episode. Today, my guest is Kyle, former climbing coach, teacher, and Houston local. This episode was recorded about a year and a half ago, so it's an oldie, but it's still a goodie. We get into what it was like to grow up in the 90s, correlations between teaching and coaching, and really just get into our love for the youth programs of America and climbing, and just two guys hanging out, talking about life in the 90s. Enjoy the episode. Who are you? Where are you from? And what is your connection to the outdoors?
All right. My name is Kyle Chalker. I'm from Houston. I grew up kind of in the Cypress area. And I kind of had like a lifelong relationship with the outdoors, I guess you could say. Like I was in Boy Scouts and all that, camping a lot in my youth. And then it wasn't until college that I started climbing, and I've been doing it ever since. So, yeah, you know, I was just like one of those like suburban kids who, you know, does the whole like YMCA, like Boy Scouts thing. You know, went camping, hunting a whole lot when I was a kid, and kind of, you know, grew up in like with the outdoors featuring pretty heavily in my like developmental years.
Do you feel like that really set that for you? I've just heard like I was in Boy Scouts, so it was like mixed reviews. Like I had a kind of a terrible time, but kind of like an okay certain time. So I've just heard mixed reviews on that. Or do you think you're like it kind of became your own later on when you were in college?
So I got out of Boy Scouts around like 12 or 13. It's like around like the middle school age. But yeah, I mean, like, I guess it depends on like what your troop was like, but any it was pretty easy for like any camp out to kind of descend into something more akin to like Lord of the Flies, like just boys pummeling one another with rocks. It's like, looking back on it now as an adult and having worked with kids briefly while I was coaching, it's just kind of insane to me that like we were sent out in the woods with like little to no parental supervision, like armed with knives and stuff like that.
Also Mohican stuff.
Yeah. So then in high school, I just kind of like, still trying to like figure out who I was, what I wanted to do. And so like, I don't know, I became like more like an indoorsy, like suburban kid. But then in college, we had access to like all kinds of like free camping equipment through our school.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah, we all, I went to UTSA, so it was pretty easy to just, pick up some gear and like drive an hour and be at like any of Texas's great like camp out spots. So I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it did. I mean, we're just vibing and hanging out. And so you said in college is when climbing got plugged in. Like, what was the catalyst to get you started climbing, and like what made it stick?
A friend. I was home over the summer between, I think, sophomore and junior year. And a friend of mine, he had started climbing out at his school, and he's like, you got to try this. So we went over to Stone Moves. That's where I first started climbing back in like 2000.
That's John Muse's old gym. Yeah.
2006-ish, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know what your experience was like when you first started climbing, but like when talking with like folks who've been climbing for a long time, like the experience is kind of roughly the same. Like someone, like they find it and then it just clicks.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes like, there's like no turning back at that point. Like you just can't envision life without climbing.
Yeah, it's like a drug.
Yeah.
It's a symbiotic. It's like a symbiotic emotional and like kind of spiritual relationship. But like, symbiosis, or it's not symbiosis. Symbiotic is where two things live together. But what is it called where two things develop a relationship together, but they can't live without each other? Is it symbiosis?
Codependent?
Yeah, codependent.
Like, if we're looking at it like from a psychological lens, and
I think it's symbiotic symbiosis. Someone will correct me, but one of those two means like, once you find it, you can't get rid of it.
Yeah, like there are varying kinds of symbiosis. There's like symbiosis where both parties benefit. There's symbiosis where only one party benefits. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it's your characterization of climbing is interesting, and it assigns it some kind of like agency, or like it elevates it beyond just like an activity and into like a life force of its own, something that is alive.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just our relationship with it, because I think we project so much to it sometimes that it feels that it is alive. And in all reality, like it's like the rock doesn't care. It's an inanimate object. It's going to be there tomorrow and a million years from now, as long as someone blows it up. But but I think it's just like so much of us projecting our wants, and it's very interesting. It's almost like I want to say a mirror, but it's not. It's like a reflector. But like we project so much to it that and I'm guilty of this, but I've like, there are routes or projects or things that I've been on, like I just have to walk away, and I'm like, it's the relationship is terrible.
Yeah.
And people look at me like, I've literally had my parents be like, it's a rock.
How do
you have a relationship with it? That I'm like, you just don't understand.
Yeah. And like, you have like a bad day climbing, things aren't clicking. It can feel like an abusive relationship at times. You put your body through like the training that we do. It hurts sometimes.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
Oh man. I was just thinking about something in this little moment. I always tell people who have been like, they come back to climbing, you take a little hiatus for whatever reason, injury, life. And people are always I can tell when someone comes back into climbing in the gym, and I'm just looking at them like, climbing is like a dating relationship. You ignore your significant other for 2 weeks. You tell me what happens when you come back.
Yeah.
You pay the price.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. So your role, you work here at, Momentum. No. Yeah.
I did. I just ended my employment with Momentum a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, well, congratulations on your liberation.
Yeah. Thanks, I guess. Yeah. I started coaching at the end of last summer. But yeah, so I was working for Momentum for about like 9 months or so as a coach.
Nice. And what programs were you coaching?
Youth. So like the kind of like non-competitive side of things. So I had, as a head coach of 2 classes, there was what we call like base camp. So that's for kids that are, I think around like elementary to like early middle school age.
So what we're saying, like the 10, 11 to like
6 to 11, 12.
Are they all in one?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. So one of my classes, the youngest, she was about 6 and the oldest was about 11 or 12. So that, it kind of led to like some interesting dynamics in that class because, that they're going to be differing abilities.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've run my classes very different. What were the other ones? I'm curious. I want to dive in.
And then, so I also help coach like a youth club team or group or whatever. Also non-competitive, but for like older kids, middle school to early high school age. And then I did a base camp advanced class, which was, that same age range, like 6 to 11, but for kids that really wanted to be climbing, who like had been recommended by other coaches to move on to an advanced class because they're very coachable, they're very motivated. The things that we kind of look for when trying to feed kids through to like the competitive side of things.
So if that's not the competitive team, is that like the stepping stone to the competitive team?
It can be.
Do they compete in the USA? Do they compete in USA climbing at that level?
I don't think so. So like Momentum like has it's my impression was that like they have like the youth programs and then like the competitive team, and they both kind of like run parallel to one another.
That's pretty standard.
And like, so, the competitive coach manages the competitive side of things. And then we have a youth programs manager.
The competitive coach is Ben Jensen.
Correct.
Yeah. I know Ben very well.
All right, good. Yeah, good guy. I don't know. He's just like the Socratic ideal of like a coach, like he's very like calm. Every time I've always seen him coach, and he just seems to be very like authoritative, collected.
Stoic is the word that I would use. I've known Ben for quite a few years, and I guess stoic. He has a very gentle, stoic nature to him. He reminds me of like, the best way I know how to describe it would be like, he reminds me of a middle school principal from like the 1970s that went time traveling and realized that life is not that stressful, and he came back. That's how I see Ben Jensen.
I can see that. Yeah. He just has like a very excellent demeanor.
Absolutely. Yeah. He's good. He's a good dude.
I can see why he made his way into like the coaching sphere.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like the advanced kids, if they want, and if their parents are willing to, put in the time, money, and effort that it takes to like get their kids to the competitive side of things, then advanced kids do eventually kind of like matriculate into the competitive team.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so we kind of run the same structure. Just I have a lot more separation in my program, and so we have Little Rockers, which is really designed for the ages of 3 all the way up to like 6-ish, oldest, and then we have another program for the ages of 6 to 10, and then once you turn 11, then 11 you're in this program called Climbing Club, which is just basically 11 and up. Like it goes all the way up to as old as they want to be, and then we have Team Summit. And Team Summit is our competitive level, but that's the only program where I kind of run all the kids together at once, except I still break everything up by ages groups, because I find that it's easier for me to manage expectations for athletes and parents if I have them separated by certain age groups. And so that's interesting to me that you like run almost all of them parallel, at least the bigger ones parallel. I like imagine that's like, I guess at that group, what is the purpose of the class at that point? Like that large group, like what are you trying to give to them, and what are you trying to get them to give to you every day, or just in general, like the whole idea?
So it really depends. like with the base camp classes that I coached, and so again, that's the age range from like 6 to like 11 or 12 or so. Like we work with co-coaches as well. Mm-hmm. So if they're so you can, like you, it is kind of one of the things that I would do is try and break kids up into kids who just like are there to have fun, and then kids who are like there to like, you know, want direct feedback, want to get better at climbing, have expressed a desire to move up to an advanced level. And so you break those groups up, and you know, one coach can be giving very directed feedback toward the more motivated kids, and another coach can just be kind of like giving the other kids stuff to do, keeping them entertained. You know, still providing them direction and guidance, but it's you know, less intense. Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Like one of the things, like when I first started coaching, one of the things that I like struggled with was exactly that, like determining what my goals were going to be for a given class, and trying to like reshift my own perspective. Like, I mean, when I go to the gym, like I enter into like a fairly specific like mindset where like hard work is now about to be done. Like I'm here to train, I'm here to get stronger for the most part. So when I first started coaching and like would encounter kids who just, you know, they're just there because their parents are looking for something for them to do, shopping them around, trying to find their like activity. Like, well, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you training? Why aren't you climbing? Like, don't you want to get better? I don't understand. Cause you know, that being like my perspective for so long. Yeah, I get like I also have like a background in teaching. So, you know, it's just kind of like second nature at this point to think about, you know, coaching or education from like a goals oriented perspective, and figuring out, you know, what is it that I want, like each class or each, like what I want to accomplish at the end of each class or have accomplished at the end of each class. So, you know, that could be anything from like footwork to, I don't know, like proper technique, things like that. And just finding ways of, like in creating games and stuff like that the kids can play. Trying to find ways to make it fun for everybody. Yeah. And enjoyable for everybody. Cause I don't know about you, but like I've had bad coaches in my youth.
Yes, very much so.
Just like I like really sucked the fun out of it. And it's when you're a kid, it's very confusing. It's like, why this is baseball. Why does this have to be so serious?
I think it's like at that point, you know, and I look back at because track and field was my sport, you know, and I was lucky to have my first track and field coach was very good. He was like very just loving, and, you know, he was just, that's how he is, Mr. Calhoun. I think it was Mr. Calhoun or Mr. Owen. His name is blurring. There's two. One of those people I did not like. One of them I did like. So we'll figure it out. But if you're listening to my podcast and I forgot and I'm wrong on all accounts, I'm so sorry. But you're still a great guy. I remember he had like this boisterous mustache that was just amazing. But yeah, no, I find that like I know what you mean, and I find like the struggle with that is like at that point you have to ask yourself: are you trying to coach? It's like the question, like, what would you tell your younger self? Are you trying to coach your younger self, or are you trying to coach the person that is in front of you? And I think with most coaches that fail or get frustrated or are trying to, and failure is a wide, loose term, you know? I mean, I'm not talking about like failing at being a coach, just like that could be a daily thing or in a moment or whatever. But it is a loose term. But I think the thing is it's like kids are vastly more emotionally intelligent and smart than people give them credit for. They may not know why they feel the way they do, but they are very aware of what they feel. They're very aware of their surroundings, and they are paying attention to you far more than you know. Yeah. And I think the thing is where I see coaches run into the most amount of problems is like, they just don't think that they don't see them as people like that. And then when you're just trying to like give them instructions, And I think as you said, you discovered this later on. It's like some kids just want to have fun. Some kids are just here because they want to get better. Some kids are here because they just don't even know, they don't have the cognitive ability to critically think and even formulate, and they're still trying to learn how to formulate relationships, let alone sentences properly.
Yeah.
And so you have to understand that, like, realistically, these kids are just here. In my opinion, you have to understand that kids are there to do two things: have fun and engage. Engage is a wide topic, whether it's engaging with you, children, climbing, this, that, but just actively engage and then create critical thinking skills where they can actually like work through that and become better. Because I think you've seen, you coach for 9 months. I'm sure you saw kids slowly come out of their shell in that time. And it's just because they engage with you or whatever you're doing or the lesson or whatever it is.
Yeah. It just, that's like the whole reason anyone should coach, right? Is watching kids progress.
Yeah.
It's a very rewarding feeling.
It is.
Like
it is.
watching like a kid who first, I've had a number of kids that when they first came to my classes, afraid of heights, didn't want to go too far off the ground, things like that, and just slowly coaching them, building the confidence in their abilities, and 3 months later, they're just running up and down the walls. It's a very rewarding feeling.
It is. Yeah, I always tell people the most exciting place for me to be is cheering you or belaying you or spotting you and watching you do it, and I get like super amped, especially for the kiddos.
Oh yeah.
They make you. I find that actually is one thing too. It's like when the kids are training and like they're actually like starting to make progress, I'm always just like, man, I got to step my game up in my own training.
Yeah. You're like all these kids around you are progressing and you're just like stagnating.
Yeah, it's humbling sometimes because you're just like, they know who they are, but there are some kids that I'm just like, I don't know if you're ever going to get this. And then one day they come to practice and then they do the skate move and the catch and they do all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, all right, back to the drawing board for me. Like, I need to step my game up. Yeah.
There's always that worry that, a kid asks you, like, what's your max grade? And you're like, well, gee, I hope what the number I'm about to say is impressive enough.
That's fair. That's interesting. Kids have asked me that, like, how hard do you climb? And my response is always, depending on the child, granted, my response is like, I climb 5 fun, V fun. And they're just looking at me. They're like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, does that route look cool? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, I climb that.
All right.
And so like, I generally divert the conversation from that because it's like, I try not to do this a lot. And this is something I heard from read in a parenting book years ago, but like, try not to tell kids, good job. Always try to tell them, I liked how hard you tried and how hard you engage with that. Cause then you're teaching them over time to like, it's not about getting an A+ or a B+. It's about how much effort do you put into it.
Right.
Because that's the more life lesson skill than just that. Because, when you're an adult, how much effort you put into your work is really depending on how much money you make or how much time you do.
But like all the rewards that when growing up and like, how old are you?
I'm 37.
All right. So like growing up, I'm 35. So, coming up in like the 80s, 90s, a lot of it was, like my parents were very focused on like grades and I'd get praise from teachers for being like the smart kid in class, things like that. And in my adulthood, if you're a kid like that, when you hit your late adolescence and adulthood, all of those people who were around you, like, oh, good job, like just singing your praises every time you did something great, they're gone.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, so then you have like all of these kind of like overachieving kids who did the AP classes and things like that, who are used to getting like being motivated from like extrinsic sources, suddenly are incapable of like self-motivation without somebody there like patting them on the back or singing their praises.
It's funny. A friend of mine was telling me like in his office building they still do a gold star board and people lose their dang mind over it. Like it is so important to them.
Yeah.
And then they'll bring their kids in for the day, and the kids will see that their dad has a gold star, and like both of them kind of go nuts. And it's like, she works in HR, and she's just like, I don't get it, you know? And she's a farm girl. So it wasn't like, it didn't matter whether you got A's or B's, like, you know, you had to get up and feed the chickens or do whatever anyway. So that's interesting.
Yeah. But I like that, like rewarding like the effort, or like focusing on the effort as opposed to the outcome.
Yeah, because like if you do that, in my mind, like you also set the stage later on. And like I think, you know, and tell me, you know, I'm curious of your thoughts of this, is like, I find that like one of the most important things with coaching is not so much teaching them how to do the move. Don't get me wrong. Like, you don't want to teach them to send the boulder. And like, I know what I just said, every athlete and every person I know is going to be like, what? You say the opposite of that all the time. Because a saying I always say, and I got from my boss, is, do you want to send the boulder or do you want to do the move? And people always say, I want to send the boulder. I'm like, no, we want to do the moves. Because if you know how to do all the moves, you send the boulder anyway. By byproduct, you just
one follows the other.
Yeah. And so, but, you know, and you guys are used to hearing me say that, everyone. So I see you. But that is the front facing side of it. So like, imagine that we're like in a business. That's like what the customer sees. You know, I want you to do the move, not send the boulder. But what the coach is trying to do, in my mind, and what I'm trying to do is always, I am trying to lay the foundation so you can set your own expectations as your own coach. Because if I teach you to like understand that like it's trying hard and it's engaging with it, then my question is, especially the athletes I've been working long enough, I'm like, I come down, I'm like, honestly, did you really give your most amount of effort? I mean, did you like try as hard as you could? And they're like, nah, I didn't really do that. I'm like, okay, well, why not? And they're like, and then it leads into all this other stuff. Well, Timmy wouldn't sit next to me at lunch, or this wouldn't happen, and that, and that, and that, and all it. Once again, like, we're just trying to get kids to be, I don't know. I always tell parents this, and like, you know, not to get like NC-17 here, but like, I'm trying to teach your kid not to be an asshole. That's really all I'm trying to do. Like, I want them to grow up to be a successful member of society. But since they're starting rock climbing at 6, they're going to be naturally better than me by the time they're 37 years old. They're going to be better.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, I can coach them and make them stronger in little different ways. But the big thing is getting them to take ownership over their own climbing in a way that is genuine, transparent, and vulnerable to them. Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, and it seems complex, but realistically, I think like that's one of the reasons why I say that. It's like I'm setting the stage up so like they don't know any other way but to be blatantly honest with themselves with their climbing, and they don't realize that they're doing it with me too as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think a good coach, teacher, educator isn't like teaching how to do one specific thing, but providing their students with like the tools necessary to like figure out how to tackle things on their own in the future. I mean, like that, you know, that's just part of the educational process in the first place. Like you can put information in front of a student, but true learning doesn't come, or mastery doesn't come until they're able to like internalize it in a way that makes sense to them.
Yeah, I would agree with that very much so, because you can see that happens. Like we all know that moment as a coach where like the kid falls off the wall, but they fell off the wall the one time and they're just like sitting there staring at the wall, and you can see that like, oh, they kind of get it. Like the light bulb just turned on. Like it's that aha moment, or a near miss is probably the better way to say it. Like when you have your near miss and you figure it out. And I think that's the big thing. You said, so you have an educator's background. Were you a teacher at some point in time?
I still am.
Okay.
So I've been teaching some capacity for about 10 years. Teaching right now at a local community college, trying to finish up my PhD, which focuses on education.
Okay. That was interesting. That was going to be my next question. I was like, why? I was curious. I mean, and I'm sure this is a multifaceted answer on a lot of different levels, but like what made you decide to leave coaching and not try and pursue it as like a full-time career?
I mean, for one thing, just like I had already put like over a decade into like what my current career path.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Like I'm ABD, right? So all but dissertation.
Okay.
So I am years and years into this.
Yeah.
I don't
There's no
like,
turning back now.
Yeah, exactly. Even if I wanted to.
Yeah.
So it's just, it got to be too much,
How so?
between teaching and coaching.
Oh, yeah.
So, toward the end, I was teaching 4 classes at HCC and then teaching or coaching 3 nights a week as well. So like on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, I'd be on the HCC campus from like 10 to 2 or 3, and then have to go directly to the gym, try and get in some climbing of my own, and then coach. So by the time classes started, like the coaching classes started at 6, I was just wiped.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a work-life balance, and like still trying to pursue your own aspirations and your own climbing is rough.
And plus, like I just, like working with kids was like a fairly new experience for me. Like I just, like like the more exhausted I was, like the harder that job coaching was. Because you got to be patient with the kids. You got like they're kids, and like sometimes they're assholes, and like some kids sometimes suck.
Yeah,
and
I mean they're mean. Kids are mean people.
Yeah.
I mean, like if we're gonna be blatantly honest, we all remember middle school, high school, and then watching them interact with each other. They're just mean sometimes.
Yeah, and then like you know, and I'd also see a lot of like myself and some of the kids that I coach. I was a very sarcastic, you know, just kind of a prick when I was a kid. And you know, I thought I was so clever back then, and now I see kids doing like the exact the similar things to me, and like realizing like, man, like every teacher of mine just like really must have been frustrated with me.
Or they liked you a lot and they just chuckled at it.
Yeah, I think like it really depends on how you go about it.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's so that like just. I was just tired is the reason why I kind of walked away from it. And I don't think I am as temperamentally suited to coaching as I am to teaching. Like I work better with adults because I can, you know, it's easier to relate.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about like, you know, disciplinary issues. Like when I'm teaching college kids, I don't have to, you know, ask them repeatedly to like just stop talking about poop, you know?
Fair.
And the same way that I had like some 6-year-olds in my classes, like that's all I wanted to talk about.
I mean, yeah, I don't think poop is a universal topic no matter how old you are.
It's true. It's true.
Really is.
But I do find that the amount of time spent, higher. Like that I'd spend talking about it much more when I was a kid.
Yeah, that's funny. Do you know, it's interesting. Did you learn anything from your time working with kids that has actually helped you as an educator now working with adults? Like, were there some growth moments that you've definitely applied? Like, I'm sure there had to be moments where you're teaching adults where you're like, am I teaching adults or 6-year-olds again? But like, has there been any growth moments that have happened from that, and that is just that you've been able to transfer over?
I don't know. Maybe time will tell.
Yeah.
But not like immediately off the top of my head. I mean, like coaching, teaching, regardless, like both occupations require a fair amount of patience.
Yeah, they do.
And it just really underscores that, like you know, have to, like, you have to create trust and kind of like a safe space for kids to ask questions. Admitting ignorance or admitting that you don't know something is not something that a lot of people are comfortable doing. And I guess it, you know, largely depends on one's background as well. But, you know, like admitting ignorance and just asking questions is daunting. And, you know, if you create a space where kids are going to think that you're frustrated with them or something like that. They're not going to ask questions the same way in like a classroom. If you're short with your students or, just are dismissive, they're not going to ask those questions. And like you have failed that day as an educator.
No, that definitely, I agree with that. Oh, you just said something and it just like slipped away from my head that you were talking about. All right, it will come back to me later. It'll come back later. But yeah, no, I mean, I definitely can see that. And like, patience is the biggest thing. And I think patience and presence, is the biggest thing, especially with coaching kids, and like I do train adults and I do coach some adults, but never in a large group setting. Well, not anymore. I used to coach adults in a group fitness and a group coaching class a lot. But I would say like, even then it's like the main difference between kids and adults that in my years of experience really is honestly, it's just their ability to engage with the content that you're putting in front of them. And that's it. And then with kids, it's just not fully there yet. The ones that want to be there are there.
Yeah. I think it's also further complicated just by the nature of like coaching itself. And like at a rock gym, like when working with adults in a class at a gym, like they all want to be there.
Yeah.
In most cases, they've had to like actually pay extra money to be there
or to rearrange their schedule.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like there's an intent.
So like it's you don't have to do as much to like get them involved. But then when you're working with a group of kids where maybe like 2 or 3 really, really want to be there. And then like the other like 6 to 8 are just there because, they want to be with their friends or, their parents just want to have an activity for them to do after school. Like that becomes much more challenging trying to get them all engaged and in a space where they'll be like receptive to what you're trying to teach them.
So what are you planning on doing with your now more spare time that you have?
I'm continuing to teach. This summer semester starts on Monday. So
okay, but in your I guess those classes in the evening, like, do you have more climbing aspirations, climbing goals that you're trying to reach, or anything like that? Got any trips or anything like that coming up? I mean, you got a lot more time now. I mean, I imagine maybe not a ton, but a little bit.
Kinda. I need to like figure out. My goal for this summer is to like get back on track with my dissertation and finish up grad school and just be done with that. And then once like I'm done, finally done with school at the age of 36 or whatever, then I'll feel like I have a little bit more time to play around with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, that definitely makes sense. Yeah. I just, I don't know. I guess I've been coaching so long. Like if I think about not coaching, like my immediate response in my gut is to try to like, all right, like what can I do to fill that time or to fill that void that I now have? And like half of me is like, take it as 100%. My brain is telling me only fill 50% of it and leave the rest of the 50 open. Just like whatever the universe brings your way.
All right. That's not a bad way of going about things.
Yeah, I just think it's like, what I mean? Like the same thing. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. It came to me now. It's like when we were talking about, half of it came to me, but it's like, I think the same skills that we use for rock climbing and like problem solving, figuring things out, kind of like not knowing what's going to happen. Your beta is not always what you think is going to happen. Like, I think those same problem solving skills, because as climbers, we're innately like, if you take the sheer act of rock climbing and you take of like what we're actually trying to do, and figure it out, like these same skills, these same critical thinking skills can be applied and redirected towards a lot of different ways in life. And I think most people just don't do that. Even within the climbing community, they just don't think about like really like redirecting that energy to something that you could use, like, whether it's your relationship, whether it's your profession, whether it's your job, whether it's that, but like the same energy and tenacity and problem solving skills we have. And so,
do you think like you've been able to utilize what you've learned climbing like in other areas of your life?
Oh, absolutely.
How so?
I think obviously the biggest thing is I would say intent, and like I'm a patient person by nature.
Mm-hmm.
I just had to be growing up, but I think the intent is where I've learned, because I've had like projects that I've been working on and climbing on and going like Last Chance and going across the country, and some years I get really far in these projects and some years I don't, and some I send and some I don't. And I sat down and I asked myself a few years ago, I was like, why am I not like getting farther on these things? And then I looked at the same professional goals, some of the things I have. Like I've wanted to shoot a documentary for years, and I have the skills, I have the knowledge, I have a lot of it. You know, I think certain things could be sharper. Certain things like that could be better. And, you know, and in all reality, what I've learned is most importantly, like, the thing that I learned was this is, and I sat down and I thought about it. How did I start working on my first 513 or 514? I got on the route before I was ready. I just got on it. I didn't know if I'd send it. I didn't know if it would work. And the same thing goes for wanting to. We hear you. I know you want to come inside. This little puppy, for all of you, can hear it. She's loud, so she has to stay outside. But the same thing applies to like this podcast. Like I've always wanted to do one. I've always wanted to do this, but I just never did it. And I was like, well, I got to learn how to edit better. I've got to learn how to do this. I need to learn what microphones are what. I need to do this stuff. And then at the end of the day, I was like, screw it. I'm just going to like buy something cheap on Facebook Marketplace and just start before I'm ready. And lo and behold, just starting alone was the biggest thing. And we get so psyched on rock climbing projects. We get so psyched. I mean, so psyched that we will, bro, do you have your passport? Do you have global entry? Okay, cool. Did you book the flights in Paraguay or in like Portugal or Spain? Okay, cool. Do you have a car? So who's got the car to Syriana? Who's got this? We'll put all this effort and all this like organizational structure to just get to the base of a rock climb. And we have no idea whether we can send or not. We have absolutely no idea whether we can send it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Truly speaking, like there are only, in my opinion, two kinds of like goes on a route. There's the ones you know you're going to send. Like you've trained for it. You've already done all the work. Yeah. You've done it. Like it's just putting it together. And so you know you're going to send it, at least in that trip, or put it together that trip. And then there's the times where you just have no idea what's going to happen. Yeah. You know? And I think all of that time and energy, when I redirect it towards like my podcast, or I picked up my camera and reluctantly started filming this like little idea of like a little doc and a YouTube series that I want to do. And I just all right, I'm just going to turn the camera on and just go and start recording it and writing the script. And I've been doing more script writing and things like that. And I have no idea what I'm doing. Like my script writing is like a Google Doc of conscious stream of like, you know, this is this and this and this and this. And I'm going to show it to a friend of mine who's actually a playwright or a screenwriter. Nice. And they're going to be like, this is, we're going to trash half of this. And that's probably cool. That's fine.
Well, I mean, what I tell my students when I'm teaching like a writing class is like the best way to start writing is just start writing.
Yeah. The best way to start climbing, best way to get better at climbing is just keep climbing.
Like, no, like that. I like that you have just kind of like, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. You know, a lot of people don't have that, like too cautious, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I like that. Good for you.
You know, thank you. I appreciate it. But I think as climbers, we do that though.
I guess I'm a cautious person. You know, I've entertained fantasies of starting a podcast myself.
Okay, then let's just talk about your climbing. Have you ever just walked by a boulder in the gym or something, and you're like, and it's obviously outside of your pay grade, but you're like, whatever. I'm just gonna kind of get on the moves a little bit, and you get 10 times farther than you ever thought you would.
Yeah,
that same thing. I think if we as human beings would apply that same amount of energy, or at least that same kind of like release of insecurity, or release of self-obligation, release of self-expectation. I think if we would apply that same thing to different aspects of our personal, professional, emotional, and social life, I think we would get a lot farther.
Yeah. I mean, like I think the best ways you can learn how to do something is to fail publicly.
That's so hard.
Yeah, it is. And like, you don't want to do it.
Oh
you
my God.
You don't want to make an ass of yourself. And then particularly like in this day and age where nearly everything is recorded and added to the internet. If you fail publicly, like that is now memorialized as long as the silicon lasts, you know?
True. But it's funny if you say that, because I think if you fail publicly, you are the one, I think we are the ones who think that we're humiliated and that's that. And I think there are technically 3 responses, but I think 2 are the majority. People admire you for trying. Mm-hmm. People empathize with you and or they can relate to you because they've been in that same situation. Mm-hmm. And then you have the one jerk who's just like, you're an idiot for trying and everything like that. And like, but that, I think that third part is very small and few between, because most people don't want to do that. I don't think they'll take that kind of public rebuke. But even then, if you just get out there and try, like, I think like, yeah, I mean, it's like being in a relationship. Effort goes a lot more, like intent and effort in a relationship go very, 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 very far. Just showing your significant other that you're putting in the work goes a lot farther. Whether it turns out great, we've all gone on bad dates that we've put out, that we've tried to organize, that we've tried to put on for our significant others, or we've had like, we're going to do this great thing and it turns out terribly, but the effort is still appreciated.
I guess it really depends on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like if you put together like a very elaborate proposal to someone who's like not into it.
I think at that point, you hopefully, if you're putting an elaborate proposal together and it turns down bad, like I think you should have known that going into that Playboy.
Probably. But again, like, intent and how it will be received.
True. Yeah. I was thinking more of like, just like trying out new Mexican restaurant or something. Enough. Yeah. You took it to a whole new level.
But yeah, I think like getting back like about like publicly failing, like I think we, as you pointed out, like tend to focus on how like blow things out of proportion and catastrophize and think that like, oh, like everyone's going to remember this forever.
Yeah.
I think the majority of people just don't care.
Yeah, truth. That's true.
Like if you're the type of person who tends to, like debrief one's day at the end of like when you're in bed, like, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done this, like raking yourself over the coals, things like that. You got to realize that like no one remembers, no one cares.
No.
Unless you've done something truly monstrous.
No. Yeah. No, unless you go Jeffrey Dahmer style, like no one remembers. This is the same thing with the kids. It's like the moment they get in their car after you just spent an hour and a half with them, don't remember you at all.
Yeah.
They just like, you're just gone.
Think back to like how much you remember from like your adolescence, like elementary school. It's just like an impressionistic blur of like kind of like key memories and like emotions I can kind of remember having.
The only thing I remember, I cannot remember the teacher's name, but I just remember she created this funny song in middle school for DNA, diroxyribonucleic acid.
Nice.
And that's like, I just like, people are like, what do you remember from middle school? Diroxyribonucleic acid. They're like, that's it. I'm like, it was a great moment in class. Yeah. And I was like, they're like, do you remember anything else? I'm like, I remember everybody else I didn't like.
Yep. For me, it was the verb conjugations in my Spanish class. I had a teacher who set it to like a rock song of some sort, like lip synced it, the whole deal, just one of those teachers who just isn't afraid to make a complete and utter fool of himself.
Those are the best.
They really are. They really, really are. They stick with you. What they have to say, and teach you sticks with you, and generally kind of make a positive impression on you as well.
So with that being said, have you ever gone that far in coaching the kids and or coaching the adults? Like, do you practice that in yourself?
Oh yeah. Like, one of the things that I did enjoy about coaching is, how just like absurd you can be with the kids.
Yes.
Like talk about things that you couldn't talk about with adults. I mentioned poop earlier. Sometimes it is fun to talk about poop with the kids, because their imaginations are just so in development and so incredibly unique. And they have these very, each kid has like an individual perspective on the world. And if you can get them to open up and share it with you, it can lead to some very like rewarding and humorous conversations.
I agree. I always, when I'm teaching the kids how to read beta, I always tell them like, all right, there's a 3-step process. You find the start and then you find the finish. You got to know where you're going to start and where you're going to end in life. And then, I'm like, and then from the top down, you know, cause you reverse engineer what you want in life. And I'm like, from the top down, we always count the things that are only feet. Only feet. We don't worry about because hands can turn into feet and we can use feet as hands, but we probably won't. And they're like, well, how do I know what it looks like a foot? I'm like, you see that little hole right there? Does that look like poop compared to that hole? And they're like, does it look poopy? And they're like, well, yeah, it looks kind of poopy. I'm like, do you play with poop? They're like, no. I was like, yeah, the only thing that does that is a burrowing owl. And they look at me and I'm like, Google it. But, you know, but then they laugh and they giggle about it, but then it's a way to get them engaged. Yep. And I do agree with you. I say this thing all the time to the kids. The adults at the gym always laugh at me because they're like, you say the most outlandish things to the kids, but I always joke with the kids and they know I love them, but they're like complaining about a move or they're complaining about doing something. I'm like, your parents don't pay me to be your friend. I'm only concerned with your performance. And then they're like, whatever. I'm like, you want a friend? Go find Jesus. It is not me. And the adults are just laughing all around. And one of the kids is just like, you're mean. Yep. I'm just like, am I really mean? And then the one day I'm like really nice at practice. They're all like, this is weird. This is creepy. Can you please be mean? Like one of the kids was like, just attack him. Maybe he'll just get mad. And I'm just like, no, everything's okay. We're going to have a great day. And they're like, and all of them are like, we're quitting. This is just so weird.
Who are you?
Yeah, but I think that's the fun thing about kids. Like I think also the nice thing about working with kids is you can kind of be your own alter ego. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, you have to put on a persona.
Yeah, you do. And I think that's the thing is like you mentioned earlier, it's like, you know, having to be able to give a lot. And I understand like from one job to the next. And someone asked me, it's like, what's the most important part for you coaching is like, you know, on a rough day, I literally have a playlist of like some hype songs and some rap music that I listen to. And if I'm having a rough day, I play and I get hype in the car or hype right before I take the headphones off. And then I'm like on high energy. Yeah. And then I can work with the kids because they know when you're down.
Yes.
And then the mean ones will just go at you. And then the other ones, but like sometimes they like, I don't know. I think sometimes kids, more than your coaching, they need your energy.
Yeah, that's one of the most important things. If you're just tired, if you're just not into it, you're kind of indicating to them that you are really just looking forward to going home, they pick up on that. And then...
Oh, yeah. That's not cool.
Then they just kind of like sit around. Like then like after, like within the first 30 minutes or so, the kids are just as demotivated as you are. And it can be very difficult to get that class back on track.
Yeah. I've had that issue with the coach before, which, you know, I had to pull them aside and basically tell them like, listen, if you don't want to be here, that's fine. But they can never know that.
Yeah.
They can never know that. It's like I think if you've eaten out in a restaurant enough, you'll know this experience. Like you get a server who just hates their job and hates being here. And you're like, listen, I'm not. Also, I am a snob when it comes to customer service just because I've worked in it for so long. Mm-hmm. But I definitely have told a server, I was like, listen, I know you hate your job, but I don't need to know it. So I'm going to go ahead and ask for my check, please.
Damn.
You know, and it's like, I'm not going to, I would just rather end the service right there because if I have to endure your bad attitude, I'm not going to tip you, period, at all. Huh. I'm not going to do anything.
I don't know. I'm far more forgiving of like poor customer service.
Oh, I'm not. I have no mercy for it all. I will call you like literally I got this bad customer service, horrendous in this small town in Texas, right outside of Fort Worth. And it was so appalling that I went online to the website, mind the customer service, mind the reviews for a little bit, found the manager and the owner's email and the head chef, emailed them. And I was like, I am literally sitting in your restaurant right now, this manager, this head waiter, this person. And I was like on shift today and I like timestamped everything and took a picture of my receipt. I was like, I'm just letting you know I had the worst experience of my life. And I got a phone call that night as I was walking out of the gym, out of the restaurant from the guy who was like, I'm so sorry. Your next meal is completely on us. If you please, because I told him, I was like, I brought a group of 10 people. I had a really great time. And this guy just doesn't care. Yeah. And then the next time I came back, the guy who was just totally rude to me was just like, he had walked up to me and he was like, I'm sorry for this. I was like, man, listen, I'm sure you had a bad day, but at the end of the day, you have a job to do. And if you don't want to do your job, just don't come to work. I was like, I don't need your apologies. I just need you to do a better job this time. Huh. And that's just how I am.
I guess. I mean, I don't know. Like, tend to be more, like I've worked like hourly gigs.
Yeah.
They suck.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's people, people got to eat. People got to work.
Yeah, no, I don't deny that. I just think that, like I said, like I definitely think that is the case. I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm forgiving in a lot of other ways. Like, like you mess up my order. Like if you're rude to me, it's one thing. If you're just bad service, it's one thing. But if you mess up my order and you bring out something that I totally didn't ask for, I'll still eat it if you're nice about it. And I'll probably be like, okay, I'll try this anyway. It's already here. There's other aspects of it that I'm much more forgiving on.
Yeah. I try to err on the side of like, well, they're just doing their best. We're all in this together. Like this life is inherently absurd. I am
not in this together at Olive Garden.
Well, that's your mistake right there, is going to Olive Garden.
Yeah, fair enough. I was just throwing a generic name out there. I'm a food snob, so. All right. But yeah.
Well, what's your go-to cuisine? Do you have a favorite?
Oh man. I don't really have a go-to cuisine per se. I mean, I'm in this big thing. I like to cook a lot. Mm-hmm. And so like my big thing with like the reason why I like nice food is one of the things that annoys me the most is when I go to a restaurant and I order something that I could have made at home and I pay for that.
Yeah. I try not to do that. Like if I know I can make it at home, like I hate ordering like bowls at a restaurant or just like rice, beans, whatever. Like I can make that at home,
Yeah, no. So like one of my favorite restaurants in Dallas is Sketches of Spain.
Okay.
And they have this like black squid ink fish dish, which is like so good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't make this. I have no idea where to begin. I have no idea. It's like, is this thing sitting in like some homemade super thin pie crust too? I'm like it's so extravagant.
Yeah.
And it's like it's like paella. Like I really want to learn how to make paella. But paella is hard. Good paella is not easy.
Yeah. I've never tried it.
Oh, it's
not tried making it. I mean,
yeah. I mean, also living in Dallas, you're closer to the ocean, so your ingredients would be better.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I guess like yeah. I mean, currently right now, my go-to cuisine is Jamaican food because I am Jamaican. So I'm like re-cooking. I'm like remembering meals and different things that my grandmother made, and then. Right before I came here, I tried to make homemade Jamaican patties. I do this thing called bro dinner night. Okay. And so I invite just a few of my guy friends over and we'll just cook. And I learned last night that I have to, Hunter, I love you. I'm so sorry, but I'm gonna have to give you very detailed instructions next time.
Yeah.
But the goal is I try to make a new dish every time they come over.
That's good.
And so we'll just like divvy up the grocery bill and then everybody comes over and everybody has like everyone's like a little sous chef and it's fun because we're just like drinking some whiskey and we're all engaged, we're all cooking, we're all doing stuff, but at the same time we're having conversations and it's nice because we basically cook this meal together, clean the kitchen, wrap up, eat, and then by the time that's all done, we've been hanging out for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it's like they're done.
Yeah, it's always
but
stuff like that's a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's super fun. It's real low key too because everyone's just like.
And it's just the food that you make ends up tasting better anyway. Like food that you make in a group always tastes better than like something that you make on your own.
Yeah,
something like, or at least
it's
you're
like
more
happy birthday to
it. Yeah. It's like you're a little bit more forgiving of like if it doesn't turn out all that well. And
you're like, it's a learning thing. It's like camping. I feel like every time I go camping, I'm like this world-class chef. And really all I'm doing is just like grilling poblano peppers and throwing a steak on there and drinking some whiskey or wine. And then I'm like, this is amazing.
But when you've like cooked it over an open flame, that's...
Oh my gosh.
There's something very elemental about that.
It's also too, it is like you can't eat enough after a long day, after being climbing, hiking, or running around. That's like the one thing, like I sleep the best.
Yeah.
And I eat the best out there.
And the food tastes better too, because you've earned it.
Oh yeah, by far. Yeah. Even if you didn't send, but like, it doesn't matter. I think one of the best moments ever of camping is I was working on this route, Eternal Oblivion, and I didn't get it. But when I got to the campsite, the moment I walked up, my friend was like, here's your suffer scotch for today. And I was like,
I'll take it.
Yeah, this is like the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, sometimes it's enough. So I lived in Boston for a while, and a friend came up from Houston. We started search for some nearby areas to go climbing. Just trying to. There's this less developed area that we were looking for. We found instructions on how to get it in Mountain Project. We just got wound up getting totally lost in the woods, but ended up having a great time just drinking the wine that we brought, sitting on our crash pads in the middle of nowhere. It was fun. Just getting outside, even if you don't even get to climb, is nice.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part of it. Hey guys. Okay, well, you guys look fabulous, by the way. Really dolled up. You look great. You're okay, but
I see the stall of the show is doing great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this one is just hanging out.
I've got enough for over here to make a new one.
All right. Man. So we've talked about your coaching experience, and we've talked about your professional experience, and I guess is there outside of No. I think we've kind of hit all those nails. So I guess where do you kind of see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years? Where do you want to be? What do you want to be doing?
I'm pretty much doing exactly what I'm doing. I like teaching at community colleges.
Why not at a major university or a Big Ten?
A number of reasons. For one thing, there aren't jobs. To find a tenure track gig at a research university like UT or something like that, it's rare, and the competition is going to be very, very stiff. Thousands of applicants for a single job.
Oh wow,
kind of thing. And then you have to get tenure based on the books that you publish, the research that you do, and my focus, interests, and reasons for doing that. What I'm doing is teaching. So at a teaching college or community college, you get tenure behind your teaching as opposed to your publications.
That makes sense.
And I feel that is a far more valuable use of my time than just publishing a book on pedagogy that maybe 100 other people might read. And it's not going to make me any money, and it feels very circle jerky.
Yeah, no. I've always wondered that too. It's there are aspects of this is not the episode for that, but there are aspects of the professional climbing industry that are very much that same way. As you said, circle jerky. They're very much that same way. When you move up to a certain field level. So, but we'll dive into that another day.
All right.
Yeah. Or that's an off the mic conversation.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, well, I want to thank you for coming over and hanging out and talking with me and sharing your experiences coaching. And, I'll say this, I understand you don't have the bandwidth, but just talking to you, and I've coached a lot of coaches over my years of coaching and worked with a lot of people, but I think that just listening to you, if you ever had the bandwidth, I would definitely consider just trying it again. The only reason why I say that is listening to you, you kind of have this, it seems like you have the ability to kind of connect with a athlete very well. And I think you, in a large setting, as you were with so many kids all at once, it was not as successful. And I think you'd be much better in a situation where if they were divided into smaller groups or divided into this, and you had an opportunity to build a little bit more intimacy and relationship with just a smaller group, and even if that group cycles out and changes consistently, the fact of the matter that it would be a little bit more manageable, I think you would enjoy it if you ever have the opportunity to. I just say that because, like I said, I've run into a lot of coaches, and there are some people where I'm like, you definitely should not be coaching. Like, you definitely should let this go. You should do something else. IHOB's hiring, corporate jobs are available, there's other things. But just listening to you talk about it, it seems like you're just at this point where like you could almost, like, for the lack of a better term, blossom or bud, because with coaching, you get to a certain point in your coaching where all of a sudden your river goes from being very wide to getting deep. And then your experiences with the kids begin to fill the canal. And so, like, I find that, like, but you have to get past that threshold. And it's like, for me, it was like year 5. Okay. When I got past year 5, because in year 5, I was thinking about quitting a lot.
Yeah.
But then when I got past year 5, and all of a sudden I started understanding, like, more of what the kids were giving me and what I was gaining and growing and learning out of that. Then all of a sudden I fell in love with my job, and I fell in love with what I was doing with them. And I think the thing I love the most is like the relationship and the rewarding relationship that I got out of working with them. But I think when you're in such a large group, and sometimes it turns into glorified babysitting, it's hard. It's really hard, because at the end of the day, like it's this kind of catch-22. Like, the glorifying babysitting has to be there. It's the yin and the yang. Like, we can't get rid of it.
Yeah. Well, so, like, which raises what you're saying raises some interesting points in that, like, when I was clicking with kids and developed like relationships with kids that moved on to advanced classes, things like that was awesome. Like I said, like, watching kids progress, great. But like, I think both teaching and coaching are similar professions in that they ask a lot of like emotional investment. Like, it takes a lot of emotional investment.
It does.
And so, one of the things that I've been thinking about while I was coaching and after is, how we within the climbing community kind of think about coaching. So, when I working at Momentum, I was making like $12 an hour or something like that, like far beneath like a living wage. And if you're going to ask like coaches to, devote as much time as necessary to do their job well, the flip side of that coin is like, you have to pay them more.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of dives into something that I definitely want to talk about. And it's like the pay structure of coaches, and I have to give a strong caveat that, like, I'm very blessed at my job. Summit pays me very well to do what I do. I've been coaching for so long that I come from an age of coaching that I don't think exists anymore. Like, I was a subcontractor as a coach for a very long time. And I was based on like how my kids performed and how my program grew, and how all of that is really based on how I got paid. And it's a different day and age, but I do fundamentally agree with you. The reason why there is a hard time, the reason why career coaches are hard and far and few to find, even at our level, is because fundamentally they're just not getting paid enough. Yeah. Like, there is no career path. There's no nothing that, and I'm not saying that like you need to have this great educational structure or thing for that. I mean, I think there does need to be training, and I does think there needs to be some kind of structure to it. But first and foremost, like, you have to pay someone a living wage for them to be able to innovate.
Yeah. But until like that happens, you are going to kind of just attract folks that are there and view the job as like glorified babysitting.
Or they're people who are just trying to get a free membership. Yeah. And they're just trying to like weasel their way into a free membership and just get what they need out of it. And at the end of the day, the kids suffer at that point. And, this is where one of those things, I'm not in the big rooms with all the big wigs. Like, I choose not to wear the wig, but, at the end of the day, I think you have to ask yourself, with those people sitting in the room, it's like, is your intent, like, at the end of the day, yeah, you're trying to balance your sheets. I get it. And you're trying to make money, but there is a certain amount of social and moral responsibility that has to happen with this. And I'll never forget this, but Best Buy, when I worked there, their main thing they cared about was customer loyalty. Mm-hmm. They wanted that dad who bought this entertainment system, who bought this computer, to have such a great experience that they talk about it. So that kid, when he goes to college, comes to Best Buy to buy this computer and this, and they buy this, and they buy this. And honestly, that's why Best Buy's still around. Like, they're still around to a day. And just from someone who worked there a lot, I think they had, and this was in the 90s, but they focused so much on customer lineage and loyalty, almost to a detriment to themselves. But there are people who are just diehard Best Buy fans that would never shop at Circuit City.
Yeah.
Circuit City ain't around no more.
It is. And it's gone.
And so my thing is like, I look at my program, the way I design it is a legacy-based program. Mm. I look at it like, if I can get a kid in at the age of 3 and keep them engaged and keep them growing and keep them happy, over the entire lifespan of the age from 3 to 19, how much revenue am I making off of that kid? And so, yeah, that's just the money part of it. Mm-hmm. Okay. But like, now let's throw that out the window. Like, so let's not even think about that. If I'm working with a kid from the age of 3 all the way up to 19, I have the best opportunity to make them fall in love with the sport, care about climbing as they get older, want to protect climbing as they get older, and make it something that is sustainable. And that will be there for future generations to come. The money, once again, just like sending the boulder. Do you want to focus on sending the boulder, or you want to do the move? If you just focus on doing the moves, if you focus on really growing your community and growing your classes and growing your kids, the money will be there. The send will be there. I think this, like, I don't think, and so with that being said, going back to the pay thing, like, if you work on creating a structure that actually rewards people and allows a coach to innovate and grow and make their program better, then it will be better. Yeah.
Do you ever worry about the like barriers to entry of our sport and just the outdoors in general? Like, just in terms of like both cost and opportunity?
I do a lot. And I think that's like, from a coaching perspective, I think from an employment and coaching perspective, that's the easiest way to get past it, because you get access to gear, you get access to things at a cheap price. You know, when they do lost and found sales, you can get your cheap. I mean, that's how I got one of the first pair of shoes I ever got, lost and found sales and things like that. And, you know, shifting into, if we're talking about like barrier of entry for people of low socioeconomic status and things like that. And yeah, that's a whole nother issue. And Linda and I yesterday were literally just talking about that. We're from the paraclimbing perspective, you know, and it's like my biggest beef that I have with, like, you know, I've worked with a couple of people in this realm and I've walked away from them because, you know, I say this with all amount of spite and tenacity that's in my voice from that, but I'm not willing to help you be the great white hope. And, you know, and they want to do it their way, and they want to do it the way that they think is best. And what they don't do is ask communities or ask people who have been in situations where, like, they can't do things that their friends wanted to do. They can't do it because they didn't have money. And, you know, for me, the biggest thing that I see in Dallas is transportation. Like, because, you know, as a kid, I remember it was like, I really wanted to join gymnastics with my friend Josh and David. Yeah. My parents couldn't afford it. And my dad was like, we can't afford it. And I was like, okay, well, what if I helped do that? And it's like, well, we can't get you to it. Yeah. And I'm like, you know, and it was one of those things. And when I thought about it, I was like, I either have to not do my homework and eat dinner and go and eat some food and go, or I have to not eat and go. Yep. And not eat and do my homework and go, you know, and it's always this thing. It's like, you know, well, we'll help kids. We'll create lunches there. Okay, cool. We'll have people help them do the tutoring. And I'm like, you're still not realizing, like, they have to take an hour and a half to 2, like, what is 30 minutes away is a 90 minute bus ride, train ride and swap. And people are like, well, we can get a bus stop, like, put right down the street for them. And I never forget, this mom was just like looking at me and she's like, well, there's a bus stop down at the Walmart. We can just, like, make sure they get there and walk. I'm like, would you let your white kid walk from that bus stop all the way to the gym? on this road, this busy ass road with no sidewalk, with no nothing. And she just sat there, got quiet and looked at me. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah. So why would you, so you want me to do it? And I'm like, yeah, that's okay. And I'm not, what I'm not trying to say is your ideas aren't bad. What I am trying to say is the situation is complicated, and it takes more than just a Band-Aid, and it takes more than just, it's going to take a lot of commitment and a lot of time. And I find that a lot of people want to get a fast fix to it. I'm kind of rambling with this whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's like obviously part of like a larger conversation with our, like, you know, having to do with, you know, late capitalism and the decline that we're currently going through. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I often think about that. Like you know, my parents are well off, as they're able to take me to all these activities. And, you know, and I'm sure you see this at your gym as well, but like, you know how much these programs cost.
Oh, I do.
You see, we had kids that would get dropped off by like nannies because their parents are working or something along those lines and just didn't have the time, but they could afford a nanny. And so like, it's cool that like we're passing the sport along, but like, you know, it's not without its worries and concerns that for subsequent generations, the outdoors is just going to become like a luxury for a lot of people.
I apologize. Next person who's
no worries.
Me. We're good. Yeah, I mean, it's it's a topic that it's weird because it's a topic that I'm very passionate about, and I want to spend more time and energy going on it. It's just the big thing that stops me from thinking about it a lot recently is like I don't even have the resources to begin. I don't even have the resources to pull the right people into the room to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the biggest issue. It's like, you know, someone asked me like, who would you pull into if you could pull anyone into the room, who would you pull in? I was like, from the city of Dallas, I would want to pull whoever runs DART, the city manager, the head of the YMCA, and then whoever is responsible for all the buses and the buses running around the city for extracurricular activities. So I guess whether it be the superintendent of all the local ISDs.
Yeah.
Like those are the people who need to be in the room. And then those are the people who actually need to care.
Yeah.
And then we could start like doing it. But like until you get those level people in the room, like there are so many facets of this, like we just don't know how to fix. And it's just like, you know, and it's, I don't know, it's this weird double-edged sword because a part of me is like, why bother until we can get those people in the room? But at the same time, I'm like, we have to have this conversation to get those people in the room.
Well, it's like you said earlier, like you gotta, like sometimes you just have to start
before you're
prepared.
Ready. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, it's that topic is just like so emotionally draining.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's rough.
Well, because the answer is almost always the same, is like, there's no profit in it.
Yeah. And like, so this kind of goes into what I was saying before, but like there is profit in it because if some of these, like, it's just a fact, not all of these kids who come in this situation are going to stay in this situation. Some of them are going to grow. Some of them are going to come out of it. Some of them are going to go to college. Some of them are going to make money. Some of them are going to create careers. And the money is not here now. I think that's a problem is like you want your balance sheet now, but if you're running a successful business and you're running a business where you're thinking long-term and you have projections that just this little bit of giving, this little bit of charity will pay for itself in the future, but you need to not think 2 years from now. We need to think 10 years from now.
Yeah. I mean, our politics are designed around short-term gain.
Yeah.
And you know, that's one of the biggest issues is that, you know, like you said, only looking for like that immediate profit in the immediate future as opposed to thinking long term. If this country ever thought I don't think it ever has.
No.
Really.
No, we're not taught to think that way.
Yeah. Like the suburbs kind of, and how they're designed around vehicles, like really underscore that. Like if we were thinking long term, we would be thinking about what like cities would look like in the future and perhaps designing Houston or Dallas around the car. Would be, you know, a thinking person would realize that is just nonsensical or like in the future going to lead to, you know, climate change, housing insecurity, things like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, if like things were built, it's like, that's like, I love Spain when I was visiting that and like these little towns and villages. It's like literally like people live on the outskirts of the village. They still walk into the village and the town, and like everything you need is all within this like easily centralized walking distance place. And even places that are on the outskirts, like there's still everything you need around there.
Yeah. Like the way European cities are designed versus how like our suburban blight. Yeah.
Oh man. We need to have another conversation about this other stuff in the future.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I would definitely love to pick your brain again in the future. I'm going to be coming back down and forth to Houston quite a bit because there is a massive climbing community and a massive outdoor community down here that I think, I say you guys are underneath the radar, but that's because Dallas focuses on Dallas. Austin focuses on Austin. And then
very insular.
Yeah. Texas is the size of most countries.
Yes.
So it's not like we can just like scoot down here. It was a short drive for Texas standards.
Yes.
It was 5 hours in traffic. I had a little bit of traffic, so that's added another 30 minutes, but it was a 5-hour drive. And I know if you're like me who grew up in Virginia, or other people are like, you drove 5 hours, and it's like, yeah, but like if you're not willing to drive 5 hours in Texas in general, then you don't leave the state.
Yeah.
I hope you have money to fly all the time.
Yeah. Anytime you'd like to talk about like classist implications of climbing and the trajectory, I'd love to.
Yeah. Is there any shout outs? You want to say hello to anybody or anything like that? Or, you can go full ghost style. It's up to you.
Nah.
Friends and enemies, lovers and haters, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Even though it was recorded 1.5 years ago, it's still timeless when you meet people where they are at that exact moment. And I really enjoyed getting a chance to re-listen to a conversation that happened quite a while ago. But what's happening right now is I am in Chattanooga here for the Indoor Climbing Expo. Use the code Mario20, get a discount. Remember, portion of those proceeds get myself and Genevieve Walker back in Africa to continue doing work with Global Climbing Initiative and Climb Malawi. As always, if you're not suffering, tell me, was that Sen even worth it at all? You gotta ask.
Audio.